Welcome to a new episode of Product Directions Podcast, 100 Product Strategies. We are your insider access to top product leaders shaping the strategy of the most diverse industries today. I'm your host, Nacho Basino, and I'll be digging into the real-life situations, problems, and frameworks used for strategy with product people all around the world in all kinds of products and markets. While there is no recipe for success, listening to others' experiences may give you the edge you need to solve your next strategic challenge. Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode. I'm here today with Diogo Novaes. He is VP of Product at Tractive, that we will speak in a minute what Tractive is, but also he has been Head of Product for Runtastic for around 3 years, living in Vienna, but originally from Brazil. And the interesting story here is that we have met in a working environment, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, probably around 15 years ago, maybe, in a very interesting gaming company that we worked together. Diogo, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Nacho. It's just a pleasure to be here, reconnecting with you. Just a small correction, I live in Linz. It's the capital of Upper Austria, but Vienna is just around the corner. Everything's close by here.
True, we met in Vienna, but not living there. Yeah, I just remember that. Good point. All right, and now that we have said that, I would like you to introduce yourself a bit more. So especially what Tractive is doing, what you have been doing there, what you have been doing in the past, so we have a bit of background story around you.
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, my name is Diogo. I'm 40. I'm from Brazil. I've been living in Austria for the last 4.5 years now. I charted a very non-linear path into product management. Basically, when we met, when we worked for the same company, I was for the first time embedded in a Scrum in a product team, right? And coming from marketing and actually having an education in film production, this was completely new for me, but I was fascinated. And that experience actually, and the product manager I worked with in that context actually really were some of the things, or one of the reasons why I decided to move into product management. I would say that at that time in São Paulo, I had a rather successful career as a marketing professional, but I found myself increasingly frustrated because a lot of my efforts around user acquisition and driving down user acquisition costs, finding the right audience, they were not really paying off to some of my customers, some of the companies I was working for, because they didn't have good products. They didn't have products that really delivered value to people. And at some point, I was so fed up of selling bad things. Can I curse on this show? I don't know.
Yes, it's practice.
I was so fed up of selling shit to people, and I wanted to make sure that I was creating something useful, valuable to them. Which is how and why I decided to move into product management. After this, I worked for a US-based startup, but everyone remotely. Actually, I was in Buenos Aires a couple of times because our developers were Argentinian. We got along great as long as we didn't speak about football. After that experience, I joined Runtastic as a product manager at first, but then shortly afterwards, I was given this opportunity to apply internally for the head of product position, and I stayed on that position for a little bit over 3 years. In March this year, I joined Tractive as the VP of product. So Tractive is a very successful startup company in Austria, very recognizable as well. So following the path of Runtastic in a way, some of the same investors, some of the same people involved. And what we do is we build GPS trackers for cats and dogs. Of course, for us, we have the hardware component, but we also write our own firmware, which is pretty unique in this space. Most of the companies in this space are actually just getting off-the-shelf solution and writing or creating their own software, their app. But we do everything. This combination of hardware, firmware, software was one of the things that really attracted me to Tractive, because I see that this is where the magic happens, right? You really see amazing, innovative companies like Apple working like this, but even Google with the Pixel lineup, they realize, if we build the hardware, if we build the software as well, then we create a more compelling product experience. And it's one of the reasons why I joined the company. What I've been doing since I got here is a lot of organizational design and process and culture, right? Actually, maybe we can talk about strategy for Tractive 6 months from now, right? But as a VP of product, I think first and foremost, where I've been investing my time is putting together a great team, making sure that the organizational design allows this great team to work and to contribute at their best, and that the whole company becomes more and more product-led, right? Which doesn't mean, for maybe a lot of people there, that I'm calling the shots, right? But it means that we are really focused on delivering real value to users first and foremost.
Changing stakeholders' mindset and things like that. So
absolutely, and we are a very interesting stage. We are a scale up. I mean, there's so many different terminology right now for this for the tech companies, right? So we are a scale up. We're growing super fast, and the team. I think when I joined in March, we were 120. We are now 190. Okay. So we're still hiring a lot, and that means that we need new processes and new ways of looking at things. And to the C-level's credit, they realize it. And because this is really a trap, especially for successful startups, they do certain things in a way, right? Because especially early on, you have maybe one PM and one product designer and 6 or 7 engineers. You don't need processes. You don't need a guy to come in and say, hey, this is how we're going to organize our cross-functional teams. This is how we're going to create like a product strategy. You're just doing things, and you're doing things very fast, and that at that stage, it works. And a lot of companies struggle to realize that after 5-6 years of fast growth, and not growing as a company, but also the team is growing, right? That they need a new way to look at things. They need a new way to look at processes and so on, right? And they always get stuck in this, but it worked so well until here. We were so successful, right? And then to Tractive's C-level and leadership credit, they realize it, and they said, hey, we know we need to change it. We need to address these things as quickly as possible because we want to continue on this growth path.
Yeah, it's a typical problem of what got you here won't get you there. So
Absolutely, yes.
Totally see that. Yes, the alignment, actually, the strategy takes a new role. But maybe then jump into strategy, as you said, probably we want to focus a bit more on the past one, because my usually introductory question is, please tell us, last time you had to create a strategy, what were your process, your tools, your frameworks you use, and how that it looked like. So you can share that experience with the audience. And I think that we talked about the Runtastic experience in the past, which was super nice. So I would like to hear more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So when I jumped into this product leadership role, I was already eager to have a strategy or to look into strategy, right? I think probably all the product managers listening to this, and all of us have experienced this. We were in a role and said, okay, what's the strategy? I need to have clarity in this. I want to have clarity on this. And all of a sudden, it's my responsibility to provide that, right? And then, okay, what do I do here? And I think at that point in time, it was very important for me to take a step back and really figure out what's the purpose of this team and what's our long-term vision. What is it that we want to do? Because we were in a setup, or like in this Spotify Agile tribe setup, right? And we were split across multiple tribes. And I was the head product for the social tribe. So basically, everything we did there was around social features, community-based features, and so on. And there wasn't a clear purpose, and a lot of people within the company challenged the amount of resources that we actually put on this. Resources in terms of time, energy, and also engineering and product design resources, right? So it felt to me like we needed to take a step back and figure out why are we doing this in the first place. And, just looking at Strava or looking at the competitors wasn't going to cut it as an answer to people, right? Because this is for me to get everyone's buy-in, not only from leadership level, from C-level management, but also from my own team. It was very important for me that everyone understood the contribution, how we're contributing.
I will stop you for a second because I think maybe too late now, but within
Sure.
maybe 2 words about what's Runtastic for those that didn't
course.
know it,
Yes,
and what's the role of social in Runtastic.
Yeah, 100%. So Runtastic, it's now called Adidas Running as a product, right? Runtastic is a company started also in Upper Austria, and it was a running app, a fitness app, first and foremost. Then the company actually grew to have multiple products. At some point, they had a portfolio of over 16 different apps, very niche specific apps. So at some point, they had an app for running, an app for nutrition, an app for bodyweight training, an app for and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, but when I joined Runtastic, it was a little bit after Adidas had acquired the company. So they sold to Adidas for an undisclosed amount. And so we were in the middle of this transformation. So one of the things that happened soon after, right after I joined, was the reduction of the portfolio to first 4 apps, then 2 apps. So the 2 apps we were focusing on, because they were the ones that resonated with Adidas as a company and Adidas strategy, were the running app and the training app or bodyweight training app. My team was in a very unique position because we were the only team contributing to both products. So we were split in 3 tribes. So there was the running tribe, which was responsible first and foremost for the running app and the core value proposition of the running app, and the training tribe that was responsible for the training app and its core value proposition. And I'm a big fan of simplifying things to the to the basics. And if you look into it, right, what can you replace these products with, right? It's ultimately the question, right? In the end, the running app, you can think of it as a stopwatch and a spreadsheet. Right?
Nice.
And the training app,
the running tribe will not appreciate that comparison probably.
Yeah, but you're automating things, right? You're making it easier for the user because you actually don't have to keep the stopwatch. You don't have to enter the information in the spreadsheet. That's what the value, or at least from a utilitarian perspective, what the value is, right? And the training app was basically a video player for exercise, right? And again, a stopwatch. So, and the social tribe was contributing to both of these apps because there was a belief that these community-based features, were bringing value to the app. To use something that you mentioned last time we met, they were the painkillers, right? Because they were solving a customer problem, a clear one. We were the vitamin. We were the ones creating added value, which made it, I think, more challenging for us because we didn't have a super concrete, tangible problem to solve.
Yeah, interesting. So going back to the story, then you were in this situation. You had to figure out what was your purpose and your strategy. What was the first steps, maybe?
The first step was to reflect on this and then approach the head of data science at that point in time, because I wanted to understand from a business perspective, what is it that I'm doing here? Right? And it was very funny because we were basically saying, okay, if this doesn't go well, if we figure out that this thing doesn't contribute to the app, do I still have a job after that? But I was really willing, I really believed that we had an impact, and I was willing to put my job on the line I had a conviction that we were doing something valuable here for the users. After all, right? This is what matters. But of course, as a product professional, as a product management professional, bringing value to the user doesn't cut it, right? You also have to make sure that it's contributing to the business. And that's what we were looking into. At that point in time, I think the head of data science, he's very passionate about product, right? And this is really amazing when you find people in these companies who are not necessarily product management or product design professional, but they're still super passionate about product. These are the people that really contribute and that it's just a pleasure to work with. I had engineering leads who were very passionate about the product, and the head of data science was also super passionate. So he was eager to help. And also we were, I think, at a point as a company that we wanted to become better at being actually data driven. So it was an opportunity for him to flex that muscle, right? to practice and to make sure that we're getting value out of what his organization had set up as well. So we looked into what were the most relevant, let's say, metrics as a company from a business perspective. So as soon as we became part of Adidas, for us, monthly active users became, I think, our top priority, right? Because it's a measure for growth, a measure for engagement, but also for an organization like Adidas that is all about marketing, right? It's eyeballs. It's people looking at the three stripes, 3-4 times a week, if that's how much they're running, which is much more than they would normally interact with the brand if they're just an e-commerce user. So monthly active users was one of the biggest things that we looked at. Then we also really considered retention for us, because we knew we had a retention issue. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but all of these apps, similar fitness, health apps, they all have, a retention problem because it's hard, right? The problem that we're trying to solve, it's hard. We're not convincing people. And I always told this to my team, because sometimes you get a bit frustrated, right? Because you put a lot of energy, so much energy into this, and sometimes you don't see the numbers, you don't see the results. And as a product leader, my job is to keep everyone at it, right? One aspect of the job, of course. And I remember telling people, hey, what we do here is really hard, because we're not trying to convince people to listen to another song or to play and watch the next Friends episode, right? That's, of course, I'm not, saying that the product managers at Netflix or Spotify don't have a hard job, for sure. But what we're trying to do is to convince people to get out of bed 30 minutes earlier to go for a run. We're trying to convince them to, instead of watching another Friends episode, actually do body weight training at home, right? So it's a hard job. Therefore we had this focus on retention as well. And the last one was actually the number of physical activities these users tracked over a given period of time. Because ultimately, even though I think we didn't have a proper product strategy, we had a clear mission, which was really great. So Adidas has as one of their values, and the statement is, through sports, we have the power to change lives, right? And this was a mission for Runtastic. It became Runtastic's mission statement. And this was very, very powerful, because we knew that we were helping people have healthier, better lives, through our products, through our work. And this was super inspiring. So we went into a ton of data. We looked into a ton. This took us a quarter, actually, to really iteratively, actually the data science team also ran sprints, and we were having some planning, and I had some input into the planning. But mostly I was there for the reviews. And We were iteratively building to it. And by the end of this quarter, we had enough data that we could confidently say, hey, by the way, if people are connected in this app, if they have at least one active friend, they retain much better early on, right? They they are much more engaged, as in app sessions, right? So it's a stickier experience for them.
Yeah.
So we have stickiness there. And then the third thing, which was, I think, for me, the most surprising, they actually are more active physically. They actually go out there for a run more often, or they also train more often in general.
A good question on that, because I think it's super interesting you are coming to this head of data science with a very broad problem space, which, usually we are more focused, we have a hypothesis and we say, hey, let's dig into this. When you approach with this very generic problem, or problem space, actually, not even a problem, did you together formulate some hypotheses, or it was more like them still starting digging in more generative way into the data?
Yeah. So we had some hypotheses, because for sure, when the team was put together, when all those resources were employed to build community features, social features, there was a hypothesis behind it, but it was never proven or disproven, which
and
was
not
like
formulated, I guess, right?
Yeah. There was
implicit
something in their mind.
hypothesis. Yeah.
Exactly, perfect, exactly that. So the hypothesis were we believe that by connecting people, that we have high engagement or better retention. Right? That was the belief or the hypothesis. But at the same time, we wanted to be very aware of confirmation bias. Right? We didn't want to simply ask the question, say, oh yeah, by the way, we were right all along. And that's why we really looked into a lot of different dimensions, and some of these high-level business metrics, because monthly active users, of course, it's a lot of things are paying into this, right? And this was one of the challenges, so we could establish like a clear correlation here. But I think it was important to us to have this hypothesis in mind, but be very much aware of the confirmation bias and make sure that we could make a strong case. We can never be 100% confident, but we could make a strong case that, hey, this is valuable.
Yeah. So you find something in data. What's the next step, or maybe how do you refine that into a strategy?
So I think that the next step for us was to look into some of the KPIs that we had established in the social tribe, in the social space, right? And so we had this connected users rate and the social interaction rate. And because in this community or social space, social network in general, we have this chicken and egg situation, right? Because you can have the network effect, but what do you do first? Do you provide value for people who are connected, or do you actually focus on connecting more people? And I think this was really the most important question that we had from a strategic perspective. And we looked into the numbers, and we tried as much as we could to find some benchmarks and some, social networks like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot, some basis of comparison, right? So of course, we didn't have data that was 100% reliable, again, because we're getting it from people who wrote articles and, different sources, so you can never know. But we did a lot of research, and we figured that, our social interaction rate, so the number of people that were actually performing a social interaction, the way we defined it, a like, a comment, we had other things that we included within a given period of time, compared to the total number of connected people, right? Because we didn't want to compare to the whole user base. That was not fair, because the whole user base doesn't have the opportunity to perform a social interaction, right? So this ratio and this social interaction rate was quite healthy for us. And we looked at it, okay, we could push this, we could put focus on this, but actually the connected users rate was lower. And we felt that this was a bigger opportunity for us. It's easier to move this from this level to a little bit more.
Quick question on that one. So it's bringing more people who is not actually connected to anyone to being connected to
Correct.
someone?
Yes, exactly. Because the definition for us was the connected users rate was out of the entire active user base, what's the percentage of people who are connected to at least one other active user? Because it also was meaningless for us, and we really needed to go into the data here to find these definitions and refine these definitions over and over again. Because, for example, at first we actually had the connected users rate. How many people who are active users are connected to someone? And we had a number that, again, was not meaningful, because if you are connected to just one person in the app and that person is no longer using the app, it's not an active user, then you don't have opportunities to engage in a social interaction, right, in a meaningful way. So we refined this, and the number of people who were connected to at least one other active user. And we felt that this was a bit too low, that we could increase it. And we looked at it from a funnel perspective, right? That we had the entire user base was the very top of the funnel for us, because anything beyond that was the user acquisition team, was not on us, right? From an ownership perspective. But the top of the funnel for us was the entire user base. And then we had the number of people who we got connected to at least one other user, right? And then the number of people who actually got or performed an interaction. So for us, this is where we saw the opportunity, from the entire user base connecting more people, and that was for us the strategy. We designed a strategy. Okay, if we want to in a couple of years be at this level of social interaction rate, or at this level of connected users rate, and to provide even more value to the business, right? We need to focus on connecting more people first, right? Once we're satisfied with this, or we have increased this to a reasonable extent, then we will focus on bringing even more value to the people who are already connected. So that was the choice, the conscious choices that we made.
That's super interesting. I really love, also one of the things I usually mention is that I said that we need to start a study with insights, which in this case is super, super clear and super strong. So I love it. But the other thing is that insights is not like your first iteration. So you really need to dig into it to refine the insight until you get into the you find a nail in that you need to hit. So it's super, super exciting. One thing I'm curious about, so I mean, was super clear how you selected the insight, which is nice. But how did you bring that to how will move the needle, because probably there were different options or different things that you can do in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a lot of ideas, because we had a great team. And again, that's a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? You're really lost in the sea of interesting, good ideas. By principle, I believe in let's try the simpler things first. And for us, for example, we could go into super complex ideas on how to, if you go for a run and then perform this action, then we will display this to other people who might see and might connect to you. So there was tons of rather interesting but complex ideas. But for me, it was the basics. What are the basics for us? So do we have like a proper recommendation engine so we connect people? Do we leverage any kind of social graph for this? So we were really back to basics here, and let's try the simple ideas first and see where we land. But we as a team, we really felt like some of the basics of what modern social networking, if you will, were not there. And we decided to focus on that first. We saw a lot of opportunities here because we realized that we had a lot more data than we anticipated to play with, right? So again, in a collaboration with the data science team, we designed this, this other approach where at first it was a little bit of a mix, between an approach that was basically rule-based. So if you are connected to Facebook, then we show you Facebook friends. If you have, so some of these things were ranked, right? So, and then, but we also started including little by little, like the social graph. We ran a job every I think it was 12 or 24 hours. That actually looked at the social graph and made recommendations based on that as well. And again, we started putting more ingredients into this, which was quite successful for us. The other thing, which was for us a basic, was how do people want to connect on this space, right? Because this is a fitness, a physical activity space. How do people relate to that? And we actually saw that when you think of an athlete, right, and we saw our users as potential athletes or
amateur
athletes, right? We didn't. You don't want to be friends, or you're not friends on a social network with Messi, right? You follow him; he's inspirational to you, and you follow him, and maybe he'll follow you back. I don't know, So we saw that this model for us made more sense, from a user perspective, and what do users want out of these social connections, whether it's inspiration, whether it's, supporting someone, this really was a good match. And also we felt that, because we're dealing with location data, right? You're sharing where you're running on a regular basis, despite our privacy controls. This is sensitive data. So we also felt that moving into a more flexible approach when it comes to social connections would be beneficial, because people will be more willing to follow someone, because then they can support them. They can, give a like or comment and support them without necessarily giving away or sharing what their running routes are, right? So I think this was also like this privacy concern was also interesting, and for me, especially as a product leader, it was fascinating, and it was very enriching, to have different perspectives, right? Because as a Brazilians are very much social by nature, and we also have users of social platforms, Orkut was huge in Brazil. Now I'm just people just realize
no one hearing this will know what Orkut is, by the way.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. People just realize that I'm 40 already now. But anyways, social networks are huge in Brazil. Instagram, Facebook is still big in Brazil. So and we spend a lot of hours, and there's not this concern about privacy. It's just starting to happen in Brazil. You're starting to see people concerned about the data and privacy and data rights and privacy and things like GDPR. So for me, from a cultural perspective, this was not a concern for me. But we have Austrian and German colleagues telling me, like, Diogo, what the hell?
What are you sharing?
people don't want to share that much. People don't want to share that much, and we need to account for this. So this was very interesting.
Quick question to that, because I think that's very interesting. Next point I had in my mind is you did a lot of focus on the quantity insights. What about mixing that with quality insights? So what amount of user research was in the mix for these strategic decisions?
So we were very fortunate to be within a moment in time where the company was more open to this, right? More open to invest in user research, because early on, especially in startup companies, you just do things, you push them out there and just see if it sticks, just throw things on the wall, whatever sticks, but as you evolve as a company, there are expectations that come with it, right? And you need to have a more balanced approach to risk, which means that companies now more willing to invest in user research, right? Instead of pushing things super fast. So we interviewed users to create user personas. And as part of the script, we spoke to them about whether or not, for example, they liked exercising in groups, whether or not they felt the support of other people on their fitness routine was relevant. So we really made sure to understand from also a social or community perspective what's the value that people see, and we got some qualitative insights that were very nice, and we saw that there was a percentage, not everyone, but for sure a percentage of people who said, hey, I get motivated when I go out there for a run and I get a little like or get a comment say, keep it up, man. And that also was then later on, let's say, confirmed by even more extensive research. We did some ethnographic study where a researcher set up the product, the app, with a group of people who were just starting to run, right, and to exercise. And then we asked them to basically keep a journal, video journal, of their experiences, and from that we also got some very, very interesting insights.
Super nice, because as you were saying before, it goes deep into the habit formation and things like that, very deep
Absolutely.
into human behavior.
Absolutely.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one pending question on how you went through all the insights, you selected this space that you need to focus on. And to me, from that, you have this very interesting goal in which we need to get more people connected. So it's kind of the North Star for a tribe, if you allow me to call it that.
Sure.
And then sounds more like an optimization strategy. So it's a bit different from others in which we say, hey, we need to focus on this, and this sort of spaces. It's more like, hey, this is our North Star, and then we need to optimize, as you say, go back to the basics. Is that true? Is the question, and a great interpretation. And the second one is, how this look like in paper, let's say? How was the strategy formulated? How do you communicate it to either your tribe or the company?
Yeah. So I think, yes, because strategy evolves over time, right? It changes and evolves over time. So that first version of the strategy, for sure, was based on optimization. And because we saw the opportunity there. And we saw that this were, for lack of better term, like the low-hanging fruits, right? And so we created first and foremost a presentation. So this was something that was shared with the entire company in an all-hands setting. We also introduced like a tribe all-hands, which was something that wasn't there before. So because the tribe was like 40 people almost, so we felt like it was a good idea to gather everyone. And so there was, let's say, documentation in the sense of like a really a purpose or a mission for the team, a vision for the team, a clear vision for the team, and how do these things connected also to the other tribes' works, right? How we support here, because we were in a supporting role, right? How do we support the running tribe? How do we support the training tribe with their own goals? This was also part of how we kept aligned in a way. And then I think communicating strategy, you do this on many different levels, right? You do this on a company all hands, then you do this talking to the team. You do this when you talk about OKRs, right? Oh, it's a new quarter, we have to plan OKRs. By the way, this objective, we're picking this, or we're picking these objectives and these key results because it really helps us move forward with our strategy. And you do this on a regular basis when you're talking to your product managers on sprint reviews, before the planning sessions. We had like our Jour Fix, once a week. And you're talking about this over and over again. And you're talking even, let's say, on a different level, you're talking to people over coffee chats. You're picking your best engineers and you're telling them, hey, man, this is what's on my mind. This is where I want to take the team. What do you think? Because people react to different forms of communication, right? And for a lot of people, seeing something in the company hands is enough. Okay, you got it. The company put their stamp on it. I'll follow you, right? But for other people, you need to be able to talk to them one-on-one and explain it to them over and over again. And they will have questions. You'll have tough questions, and you need to address those questions, to earn their trust, so they can say, it makes sense, Diogo. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I will also say that those questions actually help you think through it from a different perspective, and maybe help you kind of address or refine your strategy even further. So it's
Well, I think one of the people who contributed the most to this was one of my engineering leads. At some point, we had two because we were a bit split the team in Linz and Vienna, and he's very passionate about product, as I mentioned before, and he also doesn't really take anything from you, and he will tell you, like, he will poke holes on your strategy, and he will tell you, like, Diogo, this is fluff. Tell me, this is just unicorns and clouds, Tell me what we should do, you're not selling to me here, please, let's be real. And he kept me grounded, because a lot of times we start talking about the mission, the vision, and I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm very pragmatic as a product leader as well. But every now and then you start floating, And then he was one of the guys who kept me grounded, who said, hey, this doesn't make sense. And we hashed it out, and we figured out what did make sense. But also he said, like, we will never build this in not even in 5 years, let alone in 1.5 or 2 years, So this collaboration, this collaborative approach is really amazing.
Maybe I will do one more round of that question, just with an example from my side to clarify what I was aiming for.
Okay.
For example, some companies or some product leaders trying to formulate the strategy will come up with this goal, again, this kind of North Star, and then they will find or signal to areas of opportunities that we may explore. So say we want to increase people connected. So we will focus, for example, in runners in large cities, because those people has a higher potential for connection. It's just simply going from the goal to some opportunity spaces to give more direction to the teams that are actually acting on them. So when I was telling previously the optimization strategy, I felt that you didn't have any of this, but maybe when you mentioned the OKRs and the KRs and things that you were focusing, was there something of that going on, or just kind of you kept at that high level of connectedness?
There was. So when, for example, let's talk about this first step of the strategy, which is like increasing the number of connected users, right? So we establish very early on, what our target was in terms of like a percentage value. Okay, we are here, we want to be there. Right? So that was one thing, and then we said, okay, what are the most impactful things that we could do? And then we said, okay, should we focus on new users, right? Because then that drives retention up.
Interesting.
And that's also when people are usually from like a mindset more willing to go through these steps, kind of like through onboarding, right?
Yeah.
So there was for a long time a focus on new users. But then we started exploring, for example, we started again working with the data team, clustering people into what we consider like super social or completely lonely users and somewhere in between, right? And we felt that, for example, we tried to pursue that, okay, for the super social people, maybe if we prop them up and we put these profiles in front of other people, then they might be followed, right? They might be followed more often, and we can try to increase the number of connections in that regard. But we also consider the lonely people. So it was interesting because we said, okay, the lonely people, if they don't connect after 1 or 2 weeks of being in the app, forget about it. They're not interested, and then we put the focus on new users for a long time, and then we actually switched a little bit the focus at some point into people who were connected to maybe just 1 or 2 other users. So these are the people who are maybe willing to connect, but maybe they haven't found, people that have things in common with them. So if we bring them to maybe 3, 4, 5, then that would have an impact on engagement as well.
Interesting. All right. I had one final question. It's not related to what we were just discussing, but I heard last time we spoke about principles and guiding questions. I'm sure if I'm using the right words that you used, but I would like to know what role, how they were formulated and what role they play in the execution of the strategy.
For me, one of the biggest learnings as a product leader is that you have to find a good balance of keeping your people involved, right? You don't want to lock yourself in a room and make all the decisions, because that doesn't work. But also getting all the 40 people, for example, involved in this process is just not efficient as well. So what we did at that point in time, we gathered a smaller round of people who were all the product managers, all the product designers, but also the engineering leads. It was very important for us to involve the engineering leads, and I think we had someone from the lead QA for the tribe as well. And we worked through the vision, collaboratively, and then we got to a point where we say, how can we help our team really make use of this? Shouldn't be something that we print it nicely and put there on the wall, right? The product vision, what we believe in, needs to be a part of how we develop our products. And the way we decided to do this was by product principles. So we came up with a set of 5 principles, and we put them in very straightforward, very clear way, short sentences. But the most interesting thing, the idea that came from one of the designers, I think, I don't recall anymore, but anyways, it wasn't from me, but it was like, okay, how we can help people check if what they're building is adhering to these principles. So we came up with these guiding questions. So, for instance, one of the principles we had was that we are ethical, right? So the guiding question here is that, can this feature or experience be exploited to harass other people, or can this feature or experience make people unsafe at any given time? So this was just concrete questions. The first principle for us is that we should be building things that are social by design, right? What does that mean for us? It means that experiences, or either that are part of the core value proposition, or that are part of what we're trying to do in the community space, that are better, more fun, more engaging, as long as you have more friends, or as long as you're connected to more people. So that the guiding question was like, is this better if I'm connected to more people in the app?
Awesome. I actually I love it, because it's the first time I hear it, and I think it makes principles tends to be either this fluff thing, or this thing is similar to every company, and I think this way you make it very actionable and you can own it from your own perspective. So I think it's super valuable. You should write an article about that if you haven't already.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add it. I'll add it to my to-do list.
Okay. All right. I have one small question in between. It's
Sure.
The split of responsibilities between you and the PMs. How do you feel about that, or were you more on the lead? What were the PMs more on the lead?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, right? Because as you grow into a product leadership position, and especially as a middle manager, right? Because you're not the VP of product, so you're not responsible for strategy yet. You're not responsible for a number of things yet, right? But you're also not a PM anymore. So sometimes, or at least for me, I felt that I needed some time to get used to this, So my responsibilities were on the strategic side, on the coordination with the other tribes as well. So making sure that we are at a high level aligned with the other teams, and making sure also that the teams had the resources, the focus that they needed. And of course, coaching the product managers, helping the product managers grow was a big part of this responsibility. And this was, I think, I was reflecting on this when I decided to leave, right? I started asking myself, what am I leaving behind, right? What's my legacy here? And I think early on in your career, you get super excited about building products, right? That's why I switched from marketing to product management, right? I wanted to build things, And I thought to myself, what are the things in the product that will outlast me? And of course, there are a number of things that we did for the product. We improve a lot of things in the social community space. We designed an entire new feed for the app, which was a super interesting experience, a super interesting initiative as well. But at the end of the day, when I announced that I was going to leave and people started inviting me for coffee chats, I figured that my legacy was the people I work with, the growth that they had over time, and how I kept them inspired, or how I inspired them to come to work and to, hey, let's solve this problem. Let's try to improve the product.
Interesting view. All right, then now I will jump to my usual closing question, which is what I'm not asking. What's any interesting learning about the strategy that you have along the way that we didn't touch in the episode, and it would be interesting for the audience?
I think that the interesting thing is maybe the question that I would ask is, how do you start this? How do you get this started when there's no process there, right? And we spoke about this when we had a chance to chat, which is we are always waiting, for the strategy to come from the VP, as if the VP is this enlightened person who sees all, knows all, or from the C-level. And I think for me, at that point in time, I have to say, we didn't have what I would consider a compelling product strategy at Runtastic. And that didn't stop me. And I think that you can do this at every level. As a PM, you can try to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish within this sphere that I have influence over? And I was thinking the same thing. I can and should influence other areas of the product, but I cannot act on it. It's not my call to make ultimately, but under my, sphere of influence, within the social tribe, what's the best that I can do to provide strategic context to the team, to help them focus, to help them make the choices that will lead us to build a better product. And I think that this entrepreneurial spirit, is what we talk about a lot when we talk about product managers. It should apply to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether we like it or not, many companies still lack product strategy. And I think that this taking this active role instead of passive role, saying, actually, as PMs, they can really help the head of product, the VP of product, make these strategic choices for them. So as long as you are putting it forward and you are helping make this, and actually, this is the type of things that get you promoted. So it's a good recommendation also for career growth.
Yes, absolutely, because it helps. It helps the product leaders. It helps the C-level. Understand where do you want to take things. It helps them understand that you have, as I mentioned, this entrepreneurial spirit, but also that you have a vision, right? And that's what you need when you go to the next level. You have to be able to provide strategic context. You have to have a vision. You have to be able to convey and influence people. And I think for me, I remember one of the most interesting moments throughout this time is when we presented this to the newly appointed CEO at the time, and he said, "Yeah, maybe we should put more resources in the social tribe."
Nice.
And that was really validating.
Interesting. Okay, then I will close my usual rapid fire questions. So short question, short answer. And the first one I will throw at you is, what's your most recurrent tool that you use for everyday product work?
Google Docs.
Okay, good.
That's the one. If you asked me like 5 years ago, it was probably Jira, but today it's Google Docs and Google Slides.
Okay, collaboration tools. Let's unwrap it, but yeah, it's a good one. And the second one is, what's your favorite interview question? So the question you will ask product managers.
What was the last thing you learned that you applied on your role?
Oh, nice, good one. We'll take notes and steal that.
There's one more, if I may. There's one more that I really like asking these days, which is, when was the last time you changed your mind about something important and why?
Nice, good one. All right, that's everything for me. I really appreciated our time together. It was a very nice experience, and I think that you have a very nice story to tell. So thank you for being so open. Anything you want to tell to the audience? Anything where they can follow you or any interesting hiring interactive?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Nacho. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed sharing these experiences. And as I said, I think I'm really more and more reflecting on how can we contribute, right? As product leaders, what's the legacy? And so I'm very appreciative of the opportunity. Yes, we are hiring Attractive. We are hiring 2 product management positions. So please go to attractive.com. We have a 4-day work week. It's amazing. The office is great. If maybe I could show you around, but not today. But if you want to help pet owners worldwide keep their pets safe, their dogs and cats safe, join us. I love it. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn, and happy to connect and exchange experiences there as well. Thank you, Nacho.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of 100 Product Strategies, the podcast by Product Direction. You can also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram to get access to free weekly content that helps product people upgrade their skills and become more successful. You can access more material, promotional trainings, and be notified of every episode of the show with Product Direction's weekly newsletter. Join thousands of product leaders by registering in productdirection.co.